It's time for the Daniel Davis Deep Dive with retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Welcome back, my friend. Always a pleasure. I always look forward to this segment.
So do I. I really do. Can't wait to see what we do today.
I know. And, I was looking down at the topic list and I'm going, oh, geez. Because, the world's falling apart. And that's what you and I talk about from a military standpoint. And I certainly appreciate your insight in this regard. But it was just yesterday, my son brought over a video of this intense explosion in the Tartus region. Apparently, the Israelis dropped a bunch of bombs, and it looked like, and my son, in the immediate rumors on the internet were swirling that it looked like maybe a small nuke had gone off. And when you're talking about World War III starting out, the Russians, of course, have nukes. We know the Israelis do. We know the Iranians probably do. But in any event, then I see your headline with this: Putin, the West pushing us to our red lines. And when you're dealing with a nuclear power, that red line certainly could potentially involve nuclear weapons. So I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say about this one.
Yeah, there was interesting. There was almost dueling statements made by Trump and Putin at nearly the same time yesterday, both kind of laying out their positions. And Putin is for his side was saying, "Hey, I just don't get why you guys don't believe us and you keep pushing towards our red lines." He's talking about the continued use by the Biden administration of these long-range weapons inside of Russia, 200 kilometers deep inside. Trump, for his side, also made reference to the same thing, and he said, "I don't think it's a good idea, and I think we need to stop." And it's actually encouraging from a certain perspective that you have both leaders talking about the same thing, because they both want to get this thing over with for different reasons. And honestly, I don't care what their reasons are, as long as we end this war and return to some sort of stability in Europe. That's good for America.
All right, let me tap your sort of political analysis on this, which seems to be what this is. You and I have been over this before. Those, whatever those missiles are called, ATACMS, or the longer range ones, which you and I agree, and everybody in the know agrees, require some United States military high level authority approval to help use or otherwise operate and fire them. So we've got boots on the ground inside Ukraine launching missiles into Russia. That all sounds bad. We know they're not going to accomplish much. You've already talked about how they can be shot down by Russia's, version of the drone system, and they have. They come at an amazing cost. They're millions and millions of dollars a pop. This isn't like throwing a drone at something. So with all that in mind, what in the hell is Biden trying to accomplish by even allowing them to be used or having our people operate them?
Honestly, it's all we're left with is speculation, because the Biden administration officially just says this is to help Ukraine defend itself. That blanket they've been using on stuff forever, which means nothing and doesn't really answer the question. Okay, yeah, I get it. They're wanting to defend themselves, but why this particular one? Why this particular time? When it will not, cannot change the outcome of the war itself, but can possibly expand it and escalate it. There's no good answer. I mean, some of the things are that they want to maybe they want it to escalate. They want Russia to react in a strong way so that the war expands, and then Trump can't come in on 20 January and seek some kind of a negotiated settlement to end the conflict. I think that there's still some people, and this is hard to believe, in the Biden administration, and I know this for a fact, actually still have a fantasy that the war can be won if only they get more time, a little bit more money, some more ammunition, etc. And I can assure you, from a military perspective, there is exactly zero chance of that happening. All it's going to do is increase the cost in personnel, blood, and treasure for the Ukraine side to lose, because it's already baked in. The war is concluded.
Well, and I just to pivot away, still same war, same conflict. That I don't know if you had seen this, whether there's any credibility to it, because we talked before about North Korea sending some troops there, and in your estimation, they were there to get some, on the ground, real training, to the extent they end up with a shooting war with South Korea or something, because most of their military has not been engaged in actual combat. But that the North Koreans that were there actually ended up firing upon and taking out some of the Russian troops. I hate to have to laugh at that, but I don't know if you saw that or whether there's any credibility to that reporting.
You know, you just have to take everything with a grain of salt because,
Yeah.
especially in this war, there's so much intentional misinformation where various sides change things. They publish one video and claim it's something different, or even some things are doctored and manufactured in AI type of deal, whatever. I'll just tell you that it's very conceivable. It could be absolutely true as talked about, but it could also be misinformation by somebody on the Ukraine side who wants to just cast dispersions, whatever. Honestly, either way, it makes no difference because there's such small numbers we're talking about here. It's not going to be either help Russia or hurt Russia. That's why I think that the most likely scenario is that North Korea wants to gain experience for its troops because it's not. In fact, it's actually being inconvenient for Russia because they have this language problem. They have somebody who doesn't have combat experience. It's difficult to do command and control. So it's a headache for the Russian side. It's not a help.
Yeah, it's not a good opportunity for a journeyman apprentice program,
I
basically.
know. Yeah, yeah. You might want to rethink that program.
Now, is this use of these missiles and our provision of these missiles and our operation of these missiles into Russia and the concern we have, is that the self-defeating arrogance that you wanted to talk about, or are we pivoting over to something else?
Yeah, that was something else. That was because of a magazine, Foreign Affairs, what has been the premier foreign policy magazine in America for decades. Mitch McConnell published this piece in there that said basically that all of the world's problems are we don't have anything to do with them. There are all these bad guys in China, in North Korea, in Iran, and certainly in Russia, and in the Middle East, a bunch of people. All these bad things that are happening are all just because we're too weak. We need to spend not just a lot more on defense. We need to spend a lot more, and we need to forget about diplomacy. We need to go with hard power, etc. And I just took that apart and said this primacy first and this diplomacy free foreign policy has been an absolute disaster for America. That has cost us in Iraq, Afghanistan, in Syria. It's been a disaster in Syria and Libya, etc. Africa, you name it. Everywhere we've tried this, it has been disastrous results, and it is time to jettison that. But these guys want to double down on it, and I think it's a terrible idea.
Well, if they want to double down on it, as we've talked many times before and others have observed, you better damn well have an end game. You better damn well have a strategy. Why would you want to enter any given situation in conflict or war? You better know how to get from point A to point Z and what point Z is, and that point Z is a good place to be, and that you've got an effective strategy to get there. It always seems to me we're in these ready, fire, aim situations, or it's just like, well, we go in and we're like, wait a second, why are we here again?
Well, listen, I'll tell you that what worries me is that there may be an objective and it may be cash because that is the one thing that you're right. It is strategy free. It doesn't say here will be the outcome. Here is the method to get there. Here's the means of getting it done. So you have an end state, a means, and a path to get there. None of that. Except that it all goes down to we need more defense money and a lot more. I mean, he emphasized a lot more. $900 billion, way more than, what is it, like the next 10 nations in a row. And he's saying that's not enough. And I'm saying, look, don't be stupid because you're saying we want to do things that have been demonstrably failed more. And then somehow he thinks that's going to end up with which he doesn't explain how it's going to end up better for the United States. But that's what he's claiming. And that's why I'm so aggravated about it, because guys who serve in uniform like I did are the bill payers for this. And that's one of the things I pointed out in that show there, that there have been tens of thousands of Americans killed and wounded in these absurd wars that most of which didn't even need to be fought. Hundreds of thousands more killed and wounded. 6 trillion that we fought in all of these insurgent wars, since the mid 2000s. And no talk about any of the cost to us for these failed policies, but I am.
Well, I'm glad you do, and I share your concern on that. And I tell you what, as a starting point, if we're going to go down Mitch McConnell's path, how about we start with a Pentagon and a defense spending that can pass an audit? Can we just start there?
Can I give you an amen on that one? Yes.
Daniel
That's a
Davis.
good place to start. If you can't even tell me how you're using 900 billion and now you want another 100 billion, I mean, come on, man.
As my dad used to say, I got two words for you, and they ain't happy birthday. Daniel Davis, deep dive. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll
That's
talk
a good one.